Hello and thank you very much for joining me today. It's Alan Barry Labucan here with the Rocks and Stocks News website. It's Sunday, November the 7th, and I've got a sort of a timely video to put forth today. What I wanted to talk about is Newfoundland exploration. There was a lot of turmoil in the market on Friday. I did a video about a company called Newfoundland Gold, and what they had announced was that they had taken some test or some confirmation, if you will, assays from the second half of core. The first half of core they had sent off. The second half they did to check on the results. So they got a series of less grades in this verification, if you will, not really verification, but assaying of the second half. And it appears that the higher grade material was what was sent in originally. And how that happened, we don't know yet. It's a possibility that there was some selective bias in the sampling of the core, which half was sent in. But nonetheless, if you average out the two grades of the two halves of the core, it still comes out to a tremendously high grade. The other key point that I wanted to make is that the geological story of what makes Newfoundland Gold such a spectacular exploration play hasn't changed at all. They're still on an important fault called the Appleton Fault. It's one of these deep-seated structures, crustal, and what can come off of those are very high-grade discoveries. And that's exactly what they have found. Now, in addition to that, that being the right kind of plumbing system for these high-grade deposits that are similar to what was found in Fosterville Mine in Australia, the Swan Zone that made Kirkland Lake into a fabulously profitable mining company. When they found the Swan Zone, which was quite a bit deeper, they had done 20 years worth of mining there, and it took them some time before they found this Swan Zone. When they found the Swan Zone, it became a fabulously profitable mine. And that's what comes out of these orogenic deposits that are in these deep-seated structures that go practically right down to the mantle, is you can get these fabulously high-grade deposits. Newfoundland Gold hasn't just found one. It looks like they have multiple discoveries of high grade on their property. And I think there's room for more. And the other thing that I think was lost on a lot of people was that they've only really scratched the surface. They're not even down deep yet. And when you get down deep in these orogenic deposits, oftentimes the grade gets higher as you go deeper. And I think that depth potential is still wide open. Now, on their main Keats deposit that has everybody excited, the interpretation was that there's a plunge to the high-grade mineralization. But then recently they found below that plunge, down below, they found a very high-grade new hit. The potential for that is a couple things. One is that maybe this deposit doesn't have a plunge like this. Maybe it actually goes like this and then expands down as you go deeper. Or another interpretation could be that they found a blind parallel vein that goes in the same direction as that plunge. So really, I think that people traded a lot on emotions based on these check results. But I don't think that that's warranted for them. They got a 13.8% haircut. I think at one point they were down about 20%. It came back during the day. And I think on Monday, it could continue to come back because the geological story hasn't changed. The tremendous fault that they're exploring hasn't changed. The high grade hasn't changed. That high grade is still there. Just because you take a second half, it doesn't mean that the gold went anywhere from the first half. If you average them out, they're still looking at tremendously high grade. And so that hasn't changed. And the potential for more veins at depth, getting wider, getting higher grade, none of that has changed. So I think there's a secondary reason that you could see this come back quite nicely is on Friday, gold got over $1,800. That's sort of a psychological barrier that I think has now been passed. The trend is looking very positive for the price of gold. So I think there's a very good chance on Monday that we could see stronger gold prices and a stronger price for Newfound gold. I still like them based on what they've already found and what the potential of this Keats zone and maybe a second vein, or possibly it widens at depth. And they're still really close to the surface. So the depth potential is still wide open on this project. The other company I wanted to talk about has ground to the north of Newfound Gold, and that is Labrador Gold. Labrador Gold is on that same fault. In fact, they have some secondary faults and some cross-cutting faults. These are the perfect kind of scenarios for preparation of the rock for those fluids to make their way up into. They've already drilled into some high grade as well. They've found high grade at other locations at the surface, and they found a great deal of pristine grains in some of their surface sampling. And that means that the source of where those pristine grains came from still remains to be discovered, but it should not be very far from where they found these pristine grains. Pristine meaning that there's no rounding on them, that they're angular, that this means that they weren't transported very far from the source of where they came from. So Labrador has a good portion, I think it's about 12 kilometers of that Appleton Fault that extends beyond the Newfound Gold ground. And they're finding a lot of indicators that they can also make important discoveries. And again, there's potential for multiple discoveries along the structure, and also getting deeper into the structure. Going deeper can unlock a lot of potential, and more of these Swan Zone or Keats Zone type discoveries can be found along the structure at depth. The third company I wanted to talk about today is Exploits Discoveries. They also share some of that Appleton Fault. They've got an interesting sort of fork in the road of that fault, and another fault on to the south of Newfound Gold that looks quite exciting to me. To the north, they've got an area where the Valentine Lake Fault structure meets the Appleton Fault. They've got secondary structures. They've got cross-cutting structures. This again is where you can find these kind of orogenic high-grade discoveries. They've got core in the lab right now from one of their projects, So keep an eye on NFLD. They have exploits discoveries, has pending assays on drilling that's already been completed. They're going to have more drilling in the future, in the near future. They lost 11%, so they sort of traded in sympathy with the Newfound Gold story. Labrador LAB, which I talked about just previously, that's their stock symbol. They didn't lose quite as much. They were down only 2.3%. But I like all of these projects: Newfound Gold, Labrador Gold, Exploits Discovery, NFLD. I like all of them because of these deep structures that can host these, or can be the conduit for these orogenic discoveries. They're just early days in all of these projects, and they're really close to surface, so they haven't really even scratched the depth potential yet. And for example, at the Fosterville mine, they had to go down quite a bit deeper than where these other companies in Newfoundland have drilled to date. So that depth potential is still wide open. The faults haven't moved. The high-grade gold is still there. The right kind of geological environment to host to prepare the rock for these big deposits hasn't changed. And with some more enthusiasm for gold, I could see all of these companies getting back to bullish action on their stock charts. Now, another fault that's very important in Newfoundland is the Valentine Lake structure. Again, this is a very deep-seated structure that has the potential to host orogenic deposits. One of the key companies on that is a company called Marathon Gold. Back on Thursday, they got hammered quite a bit because they're a much more advanced project. They've already got a multi-million ounce gold deposit, and they're in the permitting stage. And they got some negative news but I think it's something that's not going to be long-term negative. They had to add some more information to their permitting data, and so the stock got hammered. It did come back 4.7% on Friday, which I think was a very good sign. Marathon Gold, MOZ is their stock symbol. I think they've got something that's going to be a future mine. They've got lots of money. They've got all their cash requirements looked after for that new mine. And I just think it got very oversold on that news. And if you look at the stock chart, it's come back to a very attractive price. I know Matt Manson, the guy who runs that company. I'm going to try to get him on an interview so he can tell you more details about the permitting process and what they have to do, and other things that are very positive about the company. But I'm following that Valentine Lake structure for a couple of reasons. To the north of them is where one of my website sponsors, Sokoman Minerals, has their project. Their stock symbol is SIC. They didn't get beat up too bad. They were only down 1.5%. What's exciting about them is that they're also looking for one of these orogenic high-grade gold deposits. But to date, they had only been drilling from the sides of a lake. And that kind of hampered their ability to really unlock the potential of that project. But recently they put a barge on the project, and now they can drill from the lake. And that will give them much easier access to chasing their high grade deeper, and to try to understand the faulting. It's got complex faulting on it, but that's exactly what you want in these orogenic kind of systems. In the going back to the Swan Zone at Fosterville, that also has complex faulting, and that faulting is what made the conduit or the preparation of the rock excellent for the fluids to come up and then the fluids to consolidate into the high-grade Swan Zone. So you have to understand these faulting. You have to understand the gold mineralizing system, and that's what Sokoman is doing currently with their drilling from the barge. And I think that that barge drilling is going to unlock this project dramatically. I think they're going to get a handle on the high-grade gold mineralizing system that brought the high grade that they've hit before, made it the preparation of the rock, and also opened it up for the fluids to make their way to the surface. And once they get a handle on that gold mineralizing system and the complex faulting, then they can target deeper. And at any point in that process, they could tag something like a Swan Zone. And I'm very optimistic about their current drilling off of that barge, because now they can target things much more accurately. And again, I think that that's going to open up the prospects of open up the understanding quite dramatically, and give them the chance to find one of these Swan Zones. They still have a very modest valuation considering what they're looking for. If they find something like that, the valuation will prove to be a tremendous bargain, and I think that's what's in store for the company going forward. Now, the final company I want to talk about is also another sponsor of my website, and excuse me, their name is TRU Precious Metals. And TRU Precious Metals has ground to the south of Marathon and Sokoman. And they made an important news release recently on their project that they've seen for the first time ever on this project, visible gold in the drill core. That's even though they were drilling in an area where there had been previous drilling, this is the first time, and it was sort of their most easterly hole so far, the first time that there's ever been visible gold found on the project. The other thing that I think is really important is that as this Valentine Lake structure follows through the center of their project, at the southern end of their project, it kind of makes a zigzag, and though kind of like a double hinge. At those double hinges is exactly the perfect kind of scenario for where the rocks can be prepared for the juices to flow up, the fluids to flow up into this the rock, and have one of these Swan Zone orogenic kind of discoveries. And guess where they hit the visible gold? Right at one of those hinges. The other hinge still remains open. Depth still remains open. And the fact that they've been able to take all of their previous work, take these geological structures, take those historical drill holes, and I don't think it's a coincidence that for the first time they were able to find visible gold in the core. That's a hallmark of what you're going to find in these orogenic kind of systems, and I think they're just tapping into one with that first hole to hit visible gold in the drill core. And they have a very modest valuation. I think it's looking at around $10 million valuation, currently trading at around 15 cents. They don't have a lot of stock out, so it has a nice tight share structure. And I think they've tapped into something that could get very exciting very quickly. The beauty of where they're drilling, they can pretty much drill year round. They've got lots of money for drilling. Now they're tagging into something that is going to get a lot more people's attention. When I first looked at the company and invited them to become a sponsor of the website, that was the key area. That double hinged area was a key area that caught my attention. And now that they've hit visible gold, it gets even more exciting. And I think as they sort of step out from that visible gold hit, they step out along strike and at depth, I think they can make a very significant discovery. And in addition, they're working with Goldspot, who has also helped make the Newfound Gold discovery, is using their machine learning to take all the geological information from previous, and they're generating some new holes, new places on that property to drill as well. So I think that's a heck of a good combination. That double hinged area, the visible gold, Goldspot, looking at other places on the property, and it's all on that big deep-seated structure. And they've also got some cross-cutting structures, and where those cross-cutting structures are, there's been some gold discoveries in the past in the surface sampling. So I think there's a lot to be excited about with exploits. In fact, TRU Precious Metals. And I think there's a lot to be excited about with the other companies that I covered. So sometimes these steps backwards can create tremendous opportunities for investors. And I think that that's what action is happening with these various different plays that I talked about. And also, I think that gold has recently broken out of its trend, broken above 1800, and I think the next move is to make some new highs, new all-time highs above 1900. So and move towards 2000, and in that 1800 to 2000 area, a lot of investors are going to be looking for gold stocks, gold exploration stocks. Newfoundland is one of the most exciting places to be looking for gold discoveries in Canada right now. And I think you want to take a look at all these companies that I talked about today. On that note, as always, my shows are for information purposes only. It's important for you to do your homework, speak with your financial advisors. And again, I always stress on every show, I say, do your homework. Understand the companies that you're investing in. That way, you're not going to make these emotional trades. And when you trade on emotions, like a lot of these companies have been the last few days, that makes you make poor decisions. And it also, when a lot of these stocks and are trading on emotion, it can create some tremendous opportunities. So do your homework on all these companies. Understand the companies you're invested with, whether you're looking at these companies or any other company. Try to understand those companies, because I think it'll make you a better investor, because you'll be a more informed investor. And I think that those are the kind of people that make the most money when it comes to investing. On that note, have a great day, and we will talk to you soon.